While purely growing up as a Nintendo kid, I wasn't blind to seeing what the other side of the console life held. I would play the Genesis at my friend's house, mostly Streets of Rage 1 or the Justice League Fighter if I remember correctly. I never really got to experience a lot of that Sega era until I scored my own Genesis many years later in college. I was also not oblivious to Sony entering the market with the PlayStation. My neighbors across the street had one and they were very nice to let little old me come over and play it with them. I played the shit out of Marvel vs. Capcom, the really bad one. And I was also over there watching them play Final Fantasy VII, specifically the lead up and cutscene of fucking Aerith dying. It was years later when I finally put 2 and 2 together and realized that I had seen one of the most famous video game moments near release and I was just too young to realize it. Eventually, through age and financial stability, I was able to get my own PlayStation as well, and it's great. Obviously, a landmark console in the history of video games. But there's one thing about it that I really fell in love with. Its wide range of random bullshit games of dubious quality. See, I think I'm attracted to the formative years of the medium. The PS1 was a big step in 3D graphics, and not only is it fascinating to see what inventions that brought with it, but also it's fascinating to look at what didn't work, or who was trying to cash in at the time. With the advantage of hindsight, looking back on wild, wild west eras like this yields incredible experiences, be they good or bad. Like, check out my Battlemaster video for exactly the type of shit I'm talking about. So over time, I started to get interested in one era between these 2 points that I had completely missed. The first time I saw the Sega Saturn in the meat space I was like 27 or some shit. My buddy had brought his over and left it at my house for a couple weeks, so I was tooling around with whatever games he had. Hell, I even went to the local retro game store to see if I could find anything interesting to play, and I'd just give it to him when he came back. But I didn't really find a whole lot. Much like my beautiful, sweet, darling child, the Dreamcast, physical Saturn games are either cheap doo-doo or the type of shit you put in a loan application for. So outside of Sonic 3D Blast and Virtua Fighter 2, I really didn't get to experience a whole lot. And realistically, I think the cards were always going to be stacked against me. The Saturn was not a hit in America. It was much more successful over in Japan. I wasn't going to be able to buy up Japanese games very easily. But eventually, it got much, much easier to experience what that country got to experience. And that's my angle here. Not for content reasons, but for my own. I don't really want to research these games, to know everything about them. I want to be surprised, excited, frustrated. I want to briefly live in a world where I don't already know what I'm getting into and where information isn't necessarily guaranteed. I know that some degree of this will be because I am playing something in a language I don't understand, and I think it's important to be open with that because I do not want this to just be someone like, oh my god, would you believe what those wacky Japanese were doing? This isn't a review. This is just someone finding something new and being excited about it. Maybe you'll find something exciting about it too, or it will inspire you to look at games you've never heard of. Thanks to Null DC Bear and Fightcade2, we can do this now. Born too early to explore the world. Born too late to explore the universe. Born just in time to recreate the age of discovery with the Sega Saturn. Hey, that's the title of this video. Did you see what Okay, yeah, I'm in. Whatever this is, it looks rad.
Year 1997. The world-famous virologist Dr. Maria Rilos found a cure for the devil's virus.
The devil's virus? That sounds intense.
AIDS.
Oh, get fucked, Reagan! So in the first sentence, they cure AIDS, but then a more deadly virus called muscular loosening disease strikes. To combat MLD, an initiative is put into place by the US president called the Human Machiners Project that removes infected tissue and replaces it with cybernetic enhancements that couldn't contract the virus. But it has one tiny little side effect.
Anyone with cyborg implants became immortal.
This is peak fucking fiction. So the president, smartly realizing that creating immortals might be an issue, tries to get the side effects lessened, but the citizens revolt and impeach him. The lead doctor behind curing AIDS and the HMP eventually catches MLD and dies. Her brain is put into a supercomputer called Maria that continues the HMP. Overall, the HMP is a success, and in 40 odd years, MLP is defeated, with 40% of the world having cybernetic enhancements. Now that MLP is over, the attempt to remove the cybernetic parts and reintroduce human tissue has begun. Psych, bitch, you thought that shit was done? A second, even more powerful disease called Dark Visitor strikes, and it affects both humans and cyborgs with the same symptoms as MLD. The Maria supercomputer was commandeered to create a response team of sorts called Debugger, and that's where our boy comes into play. So yeah, this is the hardest shit I've ever seen, and oh god damn it, it's a JRPG. Man, it means the rest of the story is going to be utterly lost on me. Fuck. So you play this dude who immediately has a flashback to what I can only assume was a memory of his mother being killed before being dumped into the city with his bomb-ass music playing. You can save with this guy here, and you are close to a series of stores and goodies, and you'll need them as this zone is hot for random encounters. When a random encounter happens, you will get to see how many people are running up on you, and sometimes you can choose a distance to start at. The way battle works is that you and enemies can be at 3 different ranges: short, medium, or long. Different weapons have different necessary ranges, shown here by where the circle is on the 3 lines. Small circles mean that you can choose an area to hit. Big circles mean it hits all areas at once, and big hollow circles means it can hit all areas randomly. Both you and your enemies can move between ranges and sometimes without spending a turn, so starting at a further distance doesn't necessarily mean you always get free shots. I believe you can only escape from battle if you are at the furthest end of the battlefield. I can't figure out what search does, but I believe it identifies an enemy so their stats show up before encounters and you can see their health bars in battle. Damage is split among 5 life bars: head, body, right arm, left arm, and legs. You can aim for different areas to limit options: destroy the legs and they can no longer move, blow off an arm and they can't attack with it. Personally, I've been aiming for the noggin because...
I found it! Without their heads, they're powerless!
This battle system is pretty fun, especially with all the potential weapons you have. You don't gain experience, and really you don't gain money either, but you get parts that you can upgrade yourself with or sell off for cash. It's a little tough to figure out how to actually get better and deal more damage. I think it's all stats and weapons based. You actually have like twice as many health bars as it shows in battle for like a zillion little things. I was able to progress a little bit in the story. You start off by talking to this lady in red before you get dumped in the city. Nearby, you can find her again in the small building. You briefly leave to have a smoke or something, and the second you step out, some shit goes down and she's missing. If you go to the Sexy Dynamite, you can find her and Diet Metroid Fusion here having a squabble. We take it to the streets like civilized people, and I promptly get my ass taken off and handed back to me. I tried to fight this guy many times, but I'm a little too squishy. He attacks a little too often, and most difficult to deal with is that after every 2 good attacks on him, he heals up, and I can't burst down a body part fast enough. It's a shame that this is where Cyberdoll came to an end for me. I don't really know how to meaningfully grind and upgrade myself in the way needed to beat this guy, and it's kind of disappointing because so much of the menuing in this game is in English. I was able to get further along than I thought, and this game, both in story, presentation, mechanics, is wildly cool, but the language barrier was bound to catch up with me. Models with the live action footage spliced in. Oh yeah, whatever this sci-fi journey is will no doubt rule. So our handler here shows us our flight crew costumes of sorts, and we enter this cyber future city. I chose the first option given to me, and oh my god, I have no witty insight or joke to describe this. Now that we are 2D, we enter the nightclub and find 4 anime ladies in some sort of costuming. We choose 3 of the 4, they all introduce themselves, and oh god damn it, it's Mahjong. How to play Mahjong. I've been putting this off for too long anyways. So, Mahjong aside, it looks like the point of this game is to collect/purchase all the costumes in the game. Boutique Fun Fun down here has the effeminate man of unknown levels of offensiveness where you can buy and sell costumes. You start with these 3 costumes, and the remaining 12 all have a letter next to them that represents one of the 3 levels they come from. V is Venus, the nightclub we were already at, M is Moontrap, and R is Rouge Magic. Now, Moontrap is another, maybe more sci-fi anime club looking thing, but Rouge Magic is actually an FMV stage. Now, the last stage, VIP, I cannot unlock because I assume I need to get all the costumes first. So, my path is clear. Can I finally learn Mahjong and make it to the VIP area? Okay, so maybe watching a couple of introductory tutorials on Riichi Mahjong didn't cut the mustard. I was royally whomped on by the girls at Venus. Badly so that I never won a hand. Shit, I never even figured out how to call for Riichi. I assume I was never actually within the parameters to do so. Through the magic of how scoring works, with some people taking directly from others instead of equally from all players, I actually got out in third. Tragically, I did lose all my money in the ending total, which is where I thought the game would be done. But no, this creepy dude runs up on me. This is the buyer, and I am in the red now, so I need to sell off some of my costumes to make it out of debt. This doesn't get me back into the main game, however. I am now slumming it in the streets, it seems, until I meet a couple of dudes who are playing and need a fourth. This is the second part of the game, Dude Purgatory. Because I'm no longer good enough to try and play with the lady cosplayers, I am bumping elbows with some uncles and a holy man. It's just guys being dudes. As after I embarrassed myself at Venus, my handler assumedly left me, as she no longer appears during any of the end of round cut-ins. This is going to sound very funny coming from me, who cannot play this game, but these dudes kinda suck. As opposed to the girls at Venus, who were throwing down winning hands like they were rolling at Motor City Casino, the dudes are rarely able to string together a winning hand, meaning that we go to draw a lot more. I swore I was close to filling out the criteria of pairs, sequences, and triplets to get myself a game like once or twice, and on one very rare occasion, I did end a round with a Tenpai instead of a No-Ten. It took an embarrassing long amount of time, but eventually the holy man destroyed me with his massive point steal, and I was finally defeated. The dadliest dad looks like he's about to give me the most regretful shakedown I've ever seen. The buyer probably tells me I can't sell my way out of debt, and I game over. My journey into Mahjong has come to an end. Honestly, if I better knew how to play Mahjong, I would probably like this game a lot. I vibe with the energy of having some sort of weird costume-based progression system to get to a final level where the best Mahjong players lie. I am minorly frustrated because I thought I was getting the hang of what I needed to do, but I probably didn't have the necessary Yaku to ever win a hand. I never knew how to call Riichi, and doing cheese or pawns never felt like it got me anywhere other than an open hand, and I didn't really know how to win from that. I'm sure to anyone who plays Mahjong, this was cringe to hear, and I'm going to lose subscribers at a rapid pace. But honestly, I'm glad I gave this a real try, and now I at least know more about Mahjong than I did before I started. I know what you're thinking, because I was thinking it too, but no, this is not made by the same people who made Parappa the Rapper. Parappa was made by Nana Osha, whereas Young Rhythm is one of the earliest games by Ultron Corporation, who went on to make just amazing amounts of cartoon licensed dribble. Regardless, this is obvious in line with Parappa, cribbing both the steez and the gameplay as hard as possible. I can at least pick out the story to a degree. Our heroine is a fan of this musician, and when the game starts, we are put smack dab into a sequence where she is running from an axe murderer, only to be saved by her heroic musician. Alas, this was but a dream, and she is late for school? The first song is Getting Ready with Your Mom, brushing your teeth and eating dinner, and we immediately run into problems here. So I cannot for sure say that this is not the emulator I'm using, as there would be no way to accurately test this without playing on original hardware. But the tracking of inputs feels like a 16th note behind. When the bar goes over the note you need to hit, it commonly shows up late by a pretty consistent margin. Now, the game, or at the very least this first song, is lenient with what gives you a pass or a fail on a sequence. But instead of hitting notes to the rhythm of music, or even sight reading the notes as they come, I instead felt like I was trying to sight read and then adjust to be about a 16th note early. This is a huge problem because as easygoing as the pass-fail of each sequence is, the end score tally is not, and you need to get into the 70s to pass the stage. A feat I was not able to do. And let's clear the air here, I am by no means bad at rhythm games. I'm currently grinding 13s in Sound Voltex. I have some skill in this genre. Shit, I'm a literal DJ. So, once again, this could be the emulator, but honestly, it doesn't feel like there is any input lag going on, so I'm not sure what the deal is. I was able to grind out and get past the first stage, wherein we have, I think, the only case of dance battling a school bully by tangoing with them, and then a stage after that where we learn how to draw a cow with a Picasso-faced art teacher. The second stage wasn't too bad, but the third stage is where Young Rhythm becomes unplayable. The inability to hit notes accurately was fine in the first 2 stages, but all the pass-fail leniency is stripped away in the third stage, and I couldn't even get to the end of it before crashing the track. And that's a bit of a shame, because I was digging the songs a lot, and I enjoyed seeing something so vociferously try to swagger jack Parappa the Rapper. I don't see a whole lot of that childlike sunshine and bright colors pop aesthetic, so seeing more of that was legitimately a joy. It's just, you know, I wish it was more playable. Yes, fuck yes, dude. The anime opening with the bomb-ass music and the 90s anime girls, fuck yes, my guy, I'm so here for this. Sci-fi with a noticeably out-of-place fantasy element to it, I am so nostalgic for this shit. So, Melty Lancer stars you as some sort of captain over a crack team of new age police enforcement. Melvina, who I am calling bullshit on being only 19, introduces you to your team of Sylvie, Sakuya, and Angela. They all seem cordial, other than Angela, who might be a bit of a gremlin. We are shown what I can only assume are locations of interest, and then what the pink lighting tells me is our antagonist, the son of the dude from Phantom Dust. Once you are set free into the game, you can check your crew stats, look at whatever these numbers mean, and talk to one of your members. After a very quick chat, you will start what feels like your rounds for the day. Now, this is very crunchy, so unlike Cyberdoll, where there was a lot more English to help me out, there is much to understand. My best guess is that these 9 doodas are locations in the city, and you can send your crew out to raise their number. In that time, your crew can do things like raise their stats. Sometimes when you go to a location, you find a bad guy, and then the battle system takes over. Cute little chibi versions of whoever was sent there automatically move and attack the enemy. You can let them attack, you can have them apprehend them, which seems to work better at lower life, but I can't be sure, or they can run. It's neat because each of your 3 characters have different attacks and is therefore more or less effective in fighting criminals. Angela and Sylvie seem to be well trained in butt kicking, but Sakuya's main attack is this long startup to it where the criminal could easily move out of the way. I'm not sure what benefit there is to capturing enemies instead of defeating them, but I assume there is one. But sadly, the majority of what's happening during daily rounds is a little lost on me. These green, red, and yellow bars show up on occasion, and I would like to think that they are somehow stamina for the next series of locations that you are sent to. You get cut-ins of the girls at places doing things, and you can see the progress bar for how fast it takes them to complete. Get it together, Sakuya! But the true end result of what they did is a little lost on me. Sending a girl to one of the 9 zones will raise its number, which I assume is good, but sometimes you get a big jump, and more often than not, I would only be increased by a couple values. They would also sometimes appear with different colors to them. I at first thought this was how to track what girl is already at a location, but I don't think that ever lined up. Eventually, through some sort of completion parameters I was unaware of, or a time limit of rounds, the week of patrol is completed and you go back to your base camp. I wasn't exactly aware of how to progress, but on the beginning of my 3rd week, a notification popped up over one of the selections that tells me it was important. Lo and behold, it was a confrontation with El Hijo de Phantom Dust, and we get a boss battle. It's him and his flunkies against all of my crew. Get him, girls! I feel pretty good about winning this encounter because unlike Cyberdoll, where I couldn't really progress due to not having the greatest idea of how to increase my stats, I was at least able to fumble my way through Melty Lancer enough to get past the first major story progression encounter. I stopped playing after that. The depth of mechanics that the game was offering was just too much for an English speaker to grasp in a way that was fun. I was just hitting random buttons and getting results I didn't know the context for, but I still think that this is a really cool game. Like, mad 90s anime vibes aside, it's this combination of simulation, tactics, and probably a little bit of adventure visual novel going on in the background. Also, the presentation just rules. Like, my obvious bias for the art aside, the low poly city you go around is super cool, and I feel like I haven't mentioned enough how all these games have just the most bitchin' music, and Melty Lancer is no exception. Now, if you excuse me, I'm gonna go get in touch with my roots and watch the Melty Lancer OVA on YouTube. Wait, no subtitles? God fucking damn it. Let's clear the air here. I am primarily picking games from a list off Null DC Bear. No cool covers or anything, I'm just picking based on names. I quickly noticed that I was running into a lot of VNs, or at least adventure-styled games. This is kind of fascinating for me because as a Westerner, I was introduced to the concept of VNs around the turn of the millennium, when works like Tsukihime, Fate Stay Night, and all the big key works became cultural pieces of note on this side of the world. But I was at least somewhat aware of very early foundational works like the Portopia serial murder case and the other mystery games like Famicom Detective Club games and Deja Vu. Now, these are much more based on point-and-click adventure game DNA, so visual novels in the 90s are a huge blind spot for me. Outside of the outrageously famous examples like Police Knots, Sakura Wars, or Tokimeki Memorial. Obviously, trying to play games almost exclusively about reading in a language I don't understand isn't a great idea, but sometimes in Discovery, you find things you don't know what to make of. Trying to see what I missed in this roughly decade-long span would be cool. And brother, what I missed was FMV. I think this is fascinating. The early to mid-90s brought the technology to use full motion video. Now, personally, when I think of FMV, I think of adventure games that have actors pop up here and there. Your Mists, your Night Traps, your Phantasmagorias. Either that or egregiously cash-in-tastic games that feature TV show footage, and I'm staring a hole in you right now, Power Rangers for the Sega CD. It's funny to think that the Eastern equivalent of, well, we have all this additional capacity, what do we do with it, was to hire an animation studio to make an opening and then compress it worse than Twitter to slam it in your game. Is basically a different flavor of the same move. Now, this is in no way unique to VNs. We've seen FMV show up in everything thus far, and we're not done just yet. And it shows up in other games in this era I love, like the opening for Advanced Variable Geo2 for the PlayStation is a personal favorite of mine. Shit like this and Melty Lancer got OVAs eventually, but initially you get this little cheesecloth compressed OP as a treat. Anyways, onto the games proper. Girl Doll Toy must be some sort of dating sim visual novel. The opening FMV all but gives it away. The main dude doesn't even have eyes, he's just a hentai protag. We're all here for the girl, or maybe girls, plural. A couple of them show up in the animation. In play, however, it is much more adventure game styled. I struggled to get out of the underground research facility, and then I struggled even harder to find my way around the school campus I was in. I tried to find anything about this game, but English internet has nary a drop of information on how this game goes. Big fan, and I mean absolutely huge fan of the main character Albert wearing a shirt with his own name on it. So Desire is another game primarily steeped in adventure trappings. Like me not knowing how to advance past the first room despite exhausting all options as far as I can tell. There's a lot of cool focus on the FMV elements. While not in adventure mode, you could see these animation cells as the graphic with some minor movements here and there. It's a nice touch. I was able to find information about Desire as it looks to be a pretty popular release. I even found a website where I can play it and other of the era eroge in my browser, which is just super wicked if you ask me. Let's see if this English translation tells me anything. That's Desire. That's where the Grantchester Foundation's Central Research Institute is located. They supposedly revamped the entire island to fit their needs. Why the hell would someone build a research institute on a remote desert island in the South Sea? I've come up with a few guesses on my own. Perhaps they're drilling for mineral resources to research innovative energy. Or perhaps they're developing illegal weapons of mass destruction. But all that is mere speculation. I've even heard the rumor saying the founder keeps a group of whores waiting to screw the employees. I'm the first reporter to ever lay foot on Desire. I prefer to lay a few babes, but I'll just have to lay my foot for now. I'd never expected the Foundation would accept my offer to do a story on them. In fact, my girlfriend Makoto— Your girlfriend? You're trying to get laid while you have a girlfriend down there? Ah, fuck this guy. 6-inch my darling. I mean, I had to see what was up with that name. I knew it wasn't going to be anything pervy because as far as I know, there were not any explicit VNs on the Saturn. Any ports had the erotic content removed. But on the real, I loved this. I would play the absolute hell out of this game. Our boy, me, who forgot to put his name in flip, so I'm going by my last name here, finds a box with a message and a strange figurine in it that somehow ends up summoning these 3 6-inch girls, and I assume this becomes a Midori Days ass rom-com. Fucking Midori Days. Can't believe someone looked at Parasite and said, yeah, let's do that with cute girls. Anyways, I'm being 100% unironic when I say that I'm eating this shit up. The super bright colors, beautiful art style that just speaks to me, and the silly fantasy premise of romancing these tiny girls is like so my jam. Like, just look at them. Pink-haired princess looking ass with the big goo-goo eyes and the dress with the dope details of like the ribbons on the cuff. You know this one has bountiful, spunky mischief energy, and her outfit has this great 90s Dragon Quest JRPG style. And then if this character isn't comic relief gremlin, then I would be shocked. If this had any sort of English patch, I would give it a real spin. It's so cheery and of the times that it hits my nostalgia right between the eyes. This is probably the game I played that I was the most bummed about not actually being able to play because of the language barrier. And not only that, but it's not like I can really go find out what takes place in this game on the internet. Like, it's always going to be a mystery to me. That's the vibe I was chasing this whole time, finding something that I've never heard of and can never really have. Like, I'm sure there's more information out there if I search. Fuck yes. FMV bullshit, baby. Let's go. So, for those unaware, X Japan is a very popular Visual Kei band, primarily big in the late 80s to 90s. Visual Kei is kind of the Japanese version of hair metal aesthetics. Big costumes, big wigs, lots of color, a level of expression towards fashion, but not necessarily a concrete music style, although lots of them were metal bands. Other acts that Westerners would know from this fold would be Duran Gray, Malice Miser, and Larkensile. X Japan was the biggest by far and the ones who coined the term, so yes, the band was big. Big enough to get their own FMV bullshit cash-in. This rips. You play as a cameraman, nice equipment, jackass, who is there to photograph their big show at the Tokyo Dome. So you have some minor, like real minor adventuring to do. You need an all-access badge to get to the elevators. You need this lens, which doesn't attach to a fucking Polaroid, jackass. You can turn the wrong way in this hallway and get an old man jump scare and fucking game over. Oh look, the set list for tonight. What? No celebration? That's my favorite song. At least Silent Jealousy is on for tonight. That tune fucking slams. So you have to get your all-access badge, which allows you to get in the elevator into the second floor. From here, you are trying to get pictures of all 5 members of X Japan: Toshi, Pada, Hide, Heath, and Yoshiki. All of these have the lightest expression of puzzles to them, or maybe even just a series of event triggers. Toshi isn't in his room, so you have to go to the 4th floor for his camera sequence. Pada is down in the staging area. Hide wants sake, so you have to go to the catering and get the right booze for him. Yoshiki is in a meeting, so you have to wait until later to get into his blindingly white, touched by an angel looking ass room. And Heath, I guess, needs water, but I was never able to find the trigger to make the water guy appear. After getting 3 members shot, you can unload your photos in the press room, which unlocks the 3rd floor, and finally, we get to play the worst, most bare bones version of MTV Make My Video. It's just 4 cameras on a performance of Rusty Nail, and all you can do is switch between them and throw up the X Japan logo if you feel so inclined. After that was when I was able to get Yoshiki. While trying to search for what the hell I need to do to get the water guy to appear, I was greeted with a white woman jump scare as she tells me the show is starting and you just get some concert footage. I stopped after that. Thank God there was a Let's Play, which I've linked below, that showed me what to do because it saved me precious minutes of my life not playing Cold Soulless Corridor Simulator. Just riveting gameplay. Now, I could have saved and tried again later, but such modern functionality like saving, loading, or having a pause menu is far beyond Virtual Shock. This is somehow below DVD extras in terms of content. I wasn't able to play the video editor again with another song, and I know from the Let's Play that there really wasn't much else I was missing in this experience, so I think I got it all wrapped up. It's very funny to me that this is made into a game, and if this was released anywhere close to standard MSRP for video games of the time, people got completely hoed out if they bought it. What a beautiful entry into the annals of awful FMV garbage. I'm not sure how to wrap this up other than by saying thank God for emulation. As I mentioned before, all of this is possible thanks to programs like Null DC Bear and Fightgate 2, which are just massive leaps in making bygone video gaming easily accessible. The reason behind Discovery being the pitch to this video is that how else would your average gamer American be able to play these things? It would be an awful financial proposition to source real hardware so I can walk through the world's quietest stadium for 45 minutes or lose in Mahjong mercilessly. But because of tools like this, we can experience the medium in ways that we never once could. This topic could come back. I really love the feeling of finding something I've never heard of before. The internet is an amazing tool, but I kinda know most things about video gaming because of it. There's not a whole lot that can catch me by surprise at this age. But Japanese Saturn games were absolutely ripe for the picking. Like, this was so much fun. I had a blast. Hopefully you did too watching this. And maybe the most important thing is that maybe you want to find something new too. Expanding your horizons is very important. And with it now easier than ever, I hope that some part of my joy towards discovery influences you to take your own. See you on the other side.